We're here to talk about the Detroit Lions on the Flint Catholic Podcast. Okay, so it's not exactly a bait and switch.
I very much want to talk about the Detroit Lions.
We definitely will talk about the Detroit Lions. We're going to have a whole segment dedicated to the Detroit Lions, but it just won't be the first segment. So We'll do the first segment, and then we'll flip over and talk right away about the Detroit Lions, because I do want to talk about the Lions. But first, you know what I want to talk about even more than the Detroit Lions? I want to talk about the USCCB Plenary Assembly, November 2024.
Oh, boy.
Doesn't that sound exciting?
Very.
Now, before you turn the podcast off, so the USCCB, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, they're meeting right now, and where most of it's boring, there actually are a few things that are kind of exciting and I do want to talk about, and I think would be kind of fun to hear about. So this plenary assembly, the bishops meet twice a year. Right now they're in Baltimore, Maryland. They meet twice a year. They talk business. They address matters in the church, and most of it is really boring. If you're really interested in it, you can go to the USCCB's YouTube page. They do it on the YouTube, and they broadcast it live. So, in fact, this morning I was watching some of it because Bishop Barron was speaking.
Oh, that's who you were listening to today.
Bishop
okay,
Barron.
I got you.
So we were watching Bishop Barron. He's always kind of exciting, and there's always good things that come from whatever he says. So it's listening to him, but most of it seems kind of boring, and this is one of the main reasons why I would never want to be a bishop, because those meetings seem very, very boring. However, every time they do this, there's always a couple of things that come out of it that are actually very interesting. And so this time, the bishops have affirmed the advancement of the cause of beatification and canonization of two people.
Okay.
So one is the servant of God, Dr. Gertrude Barber, and the other one is Sister Anella Zervis, OSB. That is the Order of St. Benedict.
Yep.
So let's talk about these two people, because I think these are really, really interesting and important things to talk about, that people here in America are being raised up and lifted up and saying, hey, we should look at them to be saints one day.
Absolutely.
And so just to give everyone a quick refresher course, what is the process for canonization? Well, there's two phases. The first phase is the diocesan phase, and the second phase is the Roman phase. So in the diocesan phase, this really is just where all the legwork is done.
Right.
All the hard work is done, like all the investigation is done, all the evidence is gathered. This is like all the heavy lifting is done here in this section.
Right.
And then they hand it off to Rome. And Rome kind of takes over the fun part from there. So there's a congregation for the cause of saints. They look at the case that's brought before them, and if they decide that it is worthy to be sent to the Pope, then this person is named a venerable.
Okay.
So they get sent to the Pope, and they become a venerable. Now, once it's sent to the Pope, that's not the end of it, right? The Pope doesn't just stamp it and say, all right, they're a saint now. But now you need two miracles attributed to this person. And these miracles actually have very high standards, very strict standards for it. And there has to be no explanation, no natural explanation possible. And when they do this, they bring in scientists, but not just, they don't bring in Christian scientists.
No.
They bring in atheist scientists. They bring in people who have no invested interest in
absolutely no bias in all.
In fact, they go above and beyond. They actually go after anti-bias. They go biased the other way. If you're going to be biased, we want you biased in the other direction.
And they mask off, I believe, the cause of it, correct?
I think so.
There's an intention to, basically, we don't want you to, like you said, anti-bias, we don't want you to think any way, that we're trying to confirm this or not.
Correct.
Just what happened here. Tell us what happened.
Correct.
Is it explainable?
In particular, if we're talking about healings too, they'll do that, right? The miracle is a healing, which is typical. Typical of them, somebody will, a group of people will pray for the intercession of this person for a healing. And so really strict, high standards for that. So if you have the first miracle that can be attributed to this person, then the next stage is beatification, which makes them blessed. And then after that, you need a second miracle, or you can start a religious order, one of those two. And if you have that second miracle, then you begin the process for canonization and become a saint.
Okay.
So So these two people are just, I think, exiting the diocesan phase.
Okay.
They're in the process of the diocesan phase, so neither of these two people have been put forward to Rome yet. And so the bishops, they were kind of given just the background of the case, and should we continue this process?
Right.
And as you can imagine, for both of these people, the vote was overwhelmingly yes.
Yes. Awesome.
So let's first start with Dr. Gertrude Barber. She was born September 16th, 1911. So both these people, right at the beginning of the century there, 1911, and then Sister, what's her name? Anella. Sister Anella was born in April 7th, 1900.
Okay.
So Dr. Gertrude Barber began teaching in the Erie School District in 1931. So she's 20 years old, and she's a teacher. What I love about this person is she's not a religious. She's not. No. She's just a teacher.
Right.
Right. And so she is exuding holiness as a teacher. She continued her education after she got this teaching gig. So she got a master's degree. She got a doctorate in education.
Good for her.
Became a school psychologist and an administrator. In 1952, so now we're another 21 years down the road, 1951, she opens her first class for children with intellectual disabilities.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in 1958, she opens the first home for children with intellectual disabilities. What's interesting to note about this time is that institutionalization was the norm. So when you had children with intellectual disabilities, they essentially would be taken away from their families and institutionalized. And Dr. Barber's like, no, let's not do that.
Not healthy.
Right. Well, and let's uphold the dignity of them too.
Absolutely.
And keep them with their families and educate and work with them in that. So she starts this first class, and then that grows into a home for children. By 1971, she leaves the Erie School District. So she spent a majority of her career with the Erie School District, a majority of her life with the Erie School District.
This is Erie, Pennsylvania, I'm assuming? Okay.
Yeah, she got
Not far from home.
Yeah, she got her undergrad at Penn State University.
Okay.
So in 1971, she left the Erie School District to lead an organization that serves individuals of all ages. So she's providing care for children in over 24 school districts. So she could now branch outside of her school district into 24 area school districts, adult training, job services, group homes, recreational programs, retirement centers for adults, mental health support services. Like, she started just running the gamut. She's like, we're going to take care of everybody.
Right.
And, I imagine with 20 years under her belt working with these homes and the schools, she had a lot of people supporting her and like, yeah, let's do this. Let's go.
Absolutely.
So in April 29th in the year 2000 is when she died. Her legacy continues on to this day. So that's Dr. Gertrude Barber. And so now let's move to Anna Cordelia Zervas. She was born April 7th, 1900 in Moorhead, Minnesota. From a young age, she exhibited a deep devotion to the Eucharist and prayer. And at the age of 15, she enters the convent of the Benedictine sisters.
Oh, wow.
Let's think about that. 15. How old are you guys? 17, 18, 16. So you are all older than Anna when she entered the Benedictine convent at the age of 15. So this is in St. Joseph, Minnesota. 3 years later, she received the Benedictine habit, and she received the name of Sister Mary Anella. She made her solemn profession 4 years after that. She's known for her generosity, her sense of humor, her musical and artistic talents, and particular her devotion to the Eucharist and the Virgin Mary. Okay. So about a year after her profession, she began to suffer from a severe, undiagnosable illness. And this illness created an immense amount of physical pain. Despite the pain, she maintained this unwavering faith and joy, and she focused on the spiritual welfare of others. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm in that much pain, it makes it very difficult to think about other people, right?
Right.
It makes it so difficult
to be joyful at all.
Or to be joyful, to think of other people, right? Like, I'm not joyful when the Lions lose a football game. Not so, and I mean, that's a certain kind of pain, right? When the Lions lose, but nothing compared to this. And yet, through it all, she continues to focus on the spiritual welfare of others. Holy Communion was her greatest consolation in her suffering. and trusted that God had a reason for this suffering. Like this is another part that always amazes me too, is like in this suffering, so many people say, why God? And like start to distrust God in moments of difficulty and trial. And she went the exact opposite way. She goes, hey, listen, the Lord has brought me this far, and I trust that this suffering is for a reason. The suffering has a purpose behind it.
Yeah. And this is a theme that you see within a lot of saints too, right? The saints that are posted up on my wall in my room.
Yeah.
I was talking with students about it, and I looked at them. I'm like, these are all young saints. And I looked at them. I'm like, and they all died young. They were very much suffering, like Saint Therese of Lisieux, Blessed Pier Giorgio, Blessed Carlo Acutis, Blessed Chiara, and thinking of other like recent American people that are going through this process. Servant of God, I believe it is, Michelle Dupont.
Yeah.
Like, these are all people that suffered with great joy. And it's like, this is a very extraordinary thing. It's an extraordinary thing to be a joyful person at all times through Christ anyway. Yeah. But especially in times of suffering and such, you know, like you said, like not even just like unfortunate things like the Lions losing or unfortunate times in our life, but like true physical hurt and chronic, where it's like, we're talking about Sister Mary Anella. Sister Mary Anella. These are undiagnosable things too, because that could be something you'd also be like, why can't they figure this out? Right. Why is there no solution there? But instead turning towards others is pretty remarkable. It is definitely the mark of a saint or soon to be saint. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that is so radical, especially in this day and age where all we're trying to do is numb suffering and trying to avoid suffering. Like
pain avoidance.
I think one of our biggest idols in our culture today is comfort.
It is.
We idolize comfort, and we do everything we can to try and reach for comfort and get comfort. And so when we see somebody who rejoices in the midst of suffering, we're either like really blown away by that, like, wow, this is incredible, or we're like, wow, that's not real.
Right.
That's fake.
Right.
And we distrust that.
We do often think that it's fake like that.
Yeah.
But it's hard to fake joy in suffering.
It kind of is.
At least sustained.
Well, for sure. And that's where her example really jumps out. She says this too. So she would say that, trust God. There's a reason for the suffering, and he would bring it to an end when he wished. And she says, I am buying my ticket for eternity, and it is well worth the price.
Wow. I'm
buying my ticket for eternity, and it is well worth the price. All the suffering that she went through. And that is a remarkable statement as well. Sometimes we forget just how good God wants it to be for us. Like the perfection of our bodies, perfection of our souls. Since we've never experienced that, we don't know how good it is, and we forget how good the promises of God are. And so when we go through suffering, we're like, well, this isn't worth it. And it is.
But we have nothing to actually compare to. Like the best moment in our lives is not comparable whatsoever to what eternity will be like in our perfected self.
That's right.
So
it is well worth the price. August 14th, 1926, at the age of 26, she died. She is remembered as an apostle of suffering for our day. An apostle of suffering. So we have two very different people here.
Yes.
And that's what I love
Long
about
life,
this too.
Lived well.
Yeah.
Short life, lived well.
That like in one was in a religious life, and one was in the world and ran into. I can't even imagine how many lives Dr. Gertrude probably affected.
I'd be interested to go to the Erie area and see like the effect that she has.
Yeah. I would be willing to bet that if you talk to anyone in the public school system in Erie and you mention her name,
I'm sure
they'll all be like, "Oh yeah, she's incredible."
Right.
Absolutely. She was someone who really set the foundation for what they're experiencing now, or what they're doing now.
And she only passed 24 years ago?
Yeah, year 2000.
Yeah.
Yep. So I love this. This is the part, like every time I see that the plenary assembly is assembling, the bishops are assembling. Like this is one of the first things I always look for, because every year there's at least one or two names.
We're going to get new venerables.
Yeah. More people to see their lives. And like I'd never heard of either of these people, and I probably never would have had the bishops not put them forward.
Definitely.
And so to see like there's so many people around us that like it makes you think, like, who are the ones today? Who are there people today that I am interacting with who one day will end up on this list at a USCCB Plenary Assembly? and it's pretty amazing. And
there are people that I could think of that I would hope to, where if it was like there's someone in my life where it's like that person, if anyone, could eventually be talked about at USCCB someday, is just like they lived their life for Christ well.
Colton, what if it's you?
What if it's you?
That'd be awesome.
The goal is for both of us, yes.
And
the goal's for all of you three also back there.
Let's make it a goal, two of us, to be on the same plenary assembly.
In what, like 21, 24?
Well, yeah, I mean,
you have to be dead to be canonized, yes.
You're right. I did forget the very first step for the process for canonization. I kind of just skipped it because I assumed it would be obvious, but you have to be dead for 5 years. So the minimum waiting period is 5 years. So, Will, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, we do have to be dead.
Sister Marianella died at 26. I just celebrated my 24th birthday. I got some year. I got to make up some ground quickly.
You got some time.
Or join a religious order.
That's true too. You could do that, or found a religious order. That would take one of the miracles off.
That's a lot. I feel like working a miracle is going to be easier than that.
It's true. I'll found the religious order because I need all the help I can get. So,
but I'm in with the goal.
Oh yeah, me too. Let's go. Let's do this. All right. So that'll bring us to the break. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about the Detroit Lions.
Oh yeah.
So, welcome back to the Flint Catholic Podcast. I'm not going to lie, I did not stay up for that football game. I went to bed at halftime.
I did because, so I'm going to count this as one of my sacrifices for sainthood. Because I work on Sunday nights, that means that anytime the Lions play either a 4:25 slot game or a primetime game, I'm missing a lot of the Lions' time of watching the game. Now, truly, is that a sacrifice? No, probably not. But I got done with youth group on Sunday night, as I do around 9:30ish after washing things and setting things away. And I looked at my phone, and it is 23-6. I'm like, come on, Lions.
Yeah,
and so
a very ugly first half.
It was. And I even had sent you a meme that I won't reference, but you know what the meme is.
Yep.
Just basically, I'm like, no, we're back to our old ways. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay up and watch. We'll see how they start to do. And then they started clawing their way back. And the team shows a lot of
grit.
Yeah, definitely a lot of grit. Just a lot of
grit.
Put your nose to the grindstone and keep working. And there's good lessons to talk about there, right?
That's true.
But the one thing that I very much want to talk about is a certain person that you preached on at All School Mass this week, and the hero of the Lions this week, Jake Bates. And actually, should we play the video for it right now?
Sure.
All right, we'll play the video for it right now.
Post-game interview.
Finish, guys. Jake, I'm going to start with you. Both of those field goals, including the game winner, just made it. How nerve-wracking was that?
Yeah, I put them a little too close to the post for comfort, but luckily they went in. I mean, Jack and Hogan are so good. We work so hard, so I have so much confidence in the operation and the line protecting, and I was just happy to do my job today.
And just recently, you were a brick salesman. You thought you were out of football. So what does this mean to you to come back and do this in your hometown area?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just shows, how good the Lord is. He's so faithful, and man, my story is, if anything, I just hope people can see Jesus through my story, and I mean, that's what I think I'm here to do is not make or miss or be a good kicker or a bad kicker, but spread the love of Jesus. So, hopefully I'm able to do that on the stage I'm given.
We want to talk about Jake Bates because of what he said right there. He said that I hope that people can see Jesus through my story. And that's a big thing. Quick little background on Jake Bates, right? He's not some kicker that has been around the NFL for a very long time. Though there are kickers within the NFL that are not afraid to share their story, like Harrison Butker and Justin Tucker. But quick little backstory right here. It was just about a year ago when Detroit Lions kicker Jake Bates was selling bricks in Houston, Texas for the Acme Brick Company. And he had said that I thought that my dream was dead. And I thought football was done and I had to move on and do something else. Luckily, the Lord had something more in store. And he said that it feels almost like too good to be true that the Lord has put him in this situation. And so in that game, if you had watched or if you didn't watch, he kicked a 58-yard field goal to tie it. And then minutes later, he kicked a 52-yard field goal, I believe it was, to win it. And that's such a big thing. Like, that's a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
Yeah, how far of a kick do you think you could make?
25 to 30.
Well, that's probably more than me.
That's the longest. That's the longest I've ever kicked, and the rest of them just go like way off into the. I'm not going to talk about that. But anyway, that's quite a thing where you can do. It's a feat, and that second kick that they showed right there on the end of that video, I'm confident he could have made from 60 plus yards, which only a handful of people in the world can do, much less even NFL kickers. A lot of them can't even do that. But instead of turning it to himself and being like, it's just all about me, like I have such a great talent and everything, there's two things that he did. One, he acknowledged the people around him that helped set him up for success, the offensive line, the snapper, the holder. And the second thing is, he thanked the Lord Jesus, and he said, I think it just shows how good the Lord is. He's so faithful, and he says that his story, if anything, he hopes through his story, he hopes that Jesus can see people, and that what he's here to do is not make or miss kicks or be a good or bad kicker, but to spread the love of Jesus, and he hopes that he's able to do it on the stage that he's been given. And that is a man who knows why he's there. This is what you said in your homily too. He knows the reason why God has put him there and the talents that he's been given. And it's just great because it could be so easy for him to look at his own story and be like, I pulled myself out of this. But instead he's like, no, the Lord gave me all these opportunities. Some other background on it was, like I said, he was selling bricks in Houston. He had never kicked a field goal in high school or in college. He was a college soccer player, and he had just kicked off kicks to, send them long into the end zone. And it wasn't until he got like a minor league, basically football tryout, and he ended up kicking a 64-yarder for the Michigan Panthers, which got him even noticed, right? And I think he's very well aware of the fact that God placed him in these different areas. And I tried to write down the full Bible verse here, but he even said later in the interview that his favorite Bible verse is Hebrews 12:1, and he quoted this to himself, or he said this to himself right before going out onto the field to kick that 52-yarder. And it is therefore, since we are so surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. And that's so true, right? It is very easy for him to get caught up in this fame. He is the big talk of the NFL this week, by the way.
Yep.
Like, not just the fact that he kicked that, but the fact that he glorified Christ in that way. And I do remember, like, I was very tired. It's the end of Sunday Night Football. This is like 11 o'clock. And I'm sitting there, like, so happy the Lions won. And all of a sudden, I took a break for a sec just to watch what they were saying in postgame. And I was pretty blown away that he said that. And I was just like, yes, it's just a perfect way to go to, like, sleep that night. Like, we've got not only a Lions win, but like a soldier for the Lord, and just
Absolutely.
reminding people about that. So any other thoughts on that? Just,
we were talking about this earlier, and kickers in the NFL, like the best kickers are Christians.
It's true.
Right. I don't know if you guys seen this. I'll probably try and plug this in later as I'm editing this episode, but Justin Tucker, have you heard him sing?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, he sings the Ave Maria, and it is just like, dude, you're already like an NFL kicker, you're an NFL player, and now you've got like this talent. Like, did when God like had the bucket of talents, and he was going to make you, did he like trip and like pour out the talent bucket inside of you? Because holy cow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And speaking of Justin Tucker, it'd be really easy to be like, so Justin Tucker actually holds the NFL record for the longest field goal ever, 66 yards against none other than the Detroit Lions in a heartbreaker. But it was like, it's so hard to be mad at you because you are a man who lives out your career in a way that you do reflect the faith.
Yeah.
And so like I couldn't even be mad at that.
No.
It's just when you see that being put into action, that's, sports people are some of the modern day like heroes, whether we like it or not. And so there's a lot of influence that they hold, and the fact that they use that influence for the Lord just makes me really happy, no matter the outcome of whatever it is.
And so the question is, like, the influence that we have in our lives, what kind of influence do we have? What platforms is the Lord putting us on? And maybe that platform is, I'm going to talk to this person right here. Right. And so, Jake Bates, he's used that platform or that post-game interview to share the gospel. But we get platforms all the time to share the gospel.
It's true.
And so are we taking advantage of them, or are we building ourselves up instead? Do we build the Lord up? Do we build ourselves up? And that's really the question that we should be asking ourselves constantly. Who are we building up, ourselves or the Lord?
Yeah. And to harken back to that first segment, I forgot the doctor's name. Do you remember it?
Dr. Barber.
Dr. Barber. Think about it. She lived a long life, right? It's not these like big pinnacle moments for her, but instead these different daily things of working within the Erie school system and developing these things. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it were just these, who is it that says it? There's someone I know that says it, that it's like divine appointments each day where God is just setting before you one or two people to encounter where you can be Christ to them and you can show the love of Christ to them in that way. Use your kind of influence as a child of God to give them, I don't know, peace or comfort or just speak truth into their lives. And that's what we're called to do, a lot of us. Not all of us can kick 66-yarders or 52-yard field goals to win. But I'm glad that the people who do use their message for Christ, and we too can do the same, even if it's not in that same way. So,
Amen. I think it's a good place to wrap up.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we'll see you next week at the Flint Catholic Podcast.